Hey everyone, it's a dose of Dr. Drew.
All righty, here we go. Today we're going to be focusing on Hillsides, where Joseph Acosta is the executive director. It's a nonprofit service provider dedicated to healing children and young adults. I mentioned it yesterday. If you remember, we were talking about URINYC. Well, Hillsides is our Los Angeles version of that. They focus on housing, education, adoption, and foster care. John has served as a CEO since 2010.
Oops.
I will bring him in just a minute while I give you guys a chance to pile on in. Happy Easter, everybody. Let's go over some numbers, though they aren't updated. I've got the COVID tracking.com where they put us at California at 20,000 positive, 600 people have died of this illness in California, which is under what was expected. If you go to the covid19.healthdata.org, you'll find that they were expecting on this day, let me get down to that, I think it was around 670 or something, and we are below that. I think what it was is the total deaths are considerably below where it was predicted. So hopefully some of these graphs will start to come down. I can tell you that I've been interacting with lots of intensivists, and there's a lot of excitement about various treatments out there and people getting turned around by the novel improvisations that physicians are getting into. Happy Easter, everyone. Happy Easter, happy Passover. Thank you, Nancy. Natalie, hi, happy Easter, everyone. Any opinions on Canada? Let me just quickly, I will check that data for you. Canada, went to the Canary Islands. For some reason, Canada is not in this data, and I don't, of course, my machine froze. Let me try one more time for you. CANAD. Not in the data there for some reason. I don't know why. Let's, maybe I can go to the COVID tracking project. I'm sorry. I think they have by country data there as well. Let me see. Let me try to go Canada. See if I can get that. I'm not having good results. I can get American Samoa, but I can't get Canada right now. So I apologize for that. If I were prepared, I'm certain I could have something for you. Yes, human medical ingenuity, particularly the medical system in the United States. It's extraordinary. New Hampshire, I almost don't have to look at, but I will for you. New Hampshire has been doing good from the beginning. Again, this is data that's going to be revised tomorrow, so we will see. You're only anticipated to have 60 COVID deaths. Right now, you should be at around 2 per day. So again, New Hampshire's been doing pretty well all along. Again, able to meet your resource demands, it looks like, needing about 1,000 hospital beds for this illness. All right, so let me focus on the charity that we're going to focus on for today, and that is a place that we have been involved with for many years called Hillsides. It's in the Pasadena area in Southern California. And just like I told Nat yesterday, if we could reproduce these programs 1,000 times or 10,000 times, oh my goodness, would there be we would handle so much of certainly the mental health issues in this country. You can follow Hillsides at Hillsides Children on Facebook and at Hillsides on Twitter. And they have a YouTube channel at infohillside.org. Again, Instagram at Hillsides Pasadena. And Joe Acosta, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much, Drew.
So how are you guys getting through all this?
Well, it's very stressful. We've got basically 2 kinds of programs. We have our community-based services, and the one that perhaps many people in the Pasadena, Southern California area know, our residential treatment center. There are 40 children there in residence and receiving treatment. And at this point, we're limiting, obviously, the access to the campus so that we can do everything we can to contain any exposure to COVID. So there's a number of protocols in place. But you can imagine these are kids who have experienced any number of traumas. We're trying to get them back to their communities of origin, if not back to their families as soon as possible. So this kind of isolation really is very stressful. And for many of these residents, the kids that we have there, it just brings back a lot of traumas that they've experienced, recalls that for them.
I'm sure. Plus, is everyone wearing masks, and there's a lot of containment within the facility kind of thing where it's, not normal interactions?
Exactly. So, I mean, at the beginning of every year, we have 24-hour care there. So there are 3 shifts. At each shift, staff are coming in, temperatures are being read, masks are being handed out, gloves. And for the actual residents, it's, again, masks are available for all the kids. We try to play around with bandanas and things that are a little bit more kid-friendly for them.
Nice.
We've limited the activity to just each one of our residential cottages. So there are 10 kids. Typically, they would be able to have a lot of interaction with other kids on the campus, but we've limited that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And we've been, heightening our monitoring just to make sure that if there's any symptoms, they can be addressed immediately.
What happens?
We're fortunate that,
what happens out in the world when people need stuff? If other services that are needed out in the world, are they still referring you stuff, or can you take new patients? How's that work in the setting of all this?
Yes, our intake department is open, and we continue to receive referrals. We bring the same kind of caution and monitoring to those referrals that are being made to us. Typically, those referrals are made through the Department of Children and Family Services, so there's been some screening, but we have another layer of screening that we do just to make sure that the kids are well. We have a 72-hour period where we create a little bit more isolation for the kids, just to make sure that they're well before they get incorporated into the cottage group.
And everybody can go to hillsides.org. There's ways to donate and volunteer right there. They have had the support of the community here in Pasadena for over 100 years, and have been doing just the state of the art in terms of managing these children with adverse childhood experiences, their educational needs, their living environment, their mental health needs. It's just an extraordinary place. And, Joe, thank you for all you do there. Is there anything you'd like people to do for Hillsides other than go on the website and donate?
Well, certainly at this time, there's been some additional expenses providing materials and resources for both kids and staff. And so anything that folks can do to help us to be able to provide those additional services is greatly appreciated. If you go to the website, there's information there. Certainly, keeping in mind that these kids are at risk and really need our services and care. We really call out our staff. They are extraordinary individuals who make their way onto the campus every day.
They're amazing. They've always been exceptional. Now they're exceptional squared.
Absolutely. I mean, these are folks that are risking their own well-being to be able to provide the care that these kids need. It's the kind of consistency that makes all the difference to these kids, be able to see these staff members who they have relationships with. So we really need to call them out and thank them for their dedicated service.
How about the Moving On program? Are they having any special stuff going on there?
So at the Youth Moving On program, most recently we've developed a drop-in center for kids 16 to 24. Many of them have been in the foster care population previously. So we've had to close the drop-in center, and luckily a lot of these kids access us on the internet, and so they've been able to stay in touch we've been able to stay in touch with them online. We've actually are doing a virtual job readiness program online with many of the young adults that have frequented our center. We also have some housing. We've got 18 young people that are living in supportive housing environments. We've made some accommodations there basically there's usually two young people in the same apartment. But we've made some accommodations and opened up some of the studios that we have in that building,
Right.
so that some of these young people can have some, separation from one another during this quarantine period.
Well, Joe, again, thank you so much for everything you do. Joe Costas, the CEO at Hillsides. Go to hillsides.org to be a part of the solution here and help out with these kids and the staff that are doing so much, who've always done so much beyond, but
Absolutely.
now they're really doing so much. So, all right, Joe, thanks, and of course we'll be in touch soon.
Drew, thank you.
All right, whatever we can do, you let us know. Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
the opportunity.
You bet, of
Bye.
course. Let me get to some of your questions on the restream here. Somebody asked about Canada, and somebody very kindly gave us a resource showing that they have 24,000 cases, 700 deaths. That's a lot of deaths in a relatively small. I don't know. Let me think about that. 24,000. Let's look at say California, where we have.
Do you think that they're putting up statistics on Easter Sunday?
I do. For instance, here I have to. My computer keeps freezing on me. All right, here we go. So we have 20,000 deaths out of 525,000 in this country. In California, which I think is a little more closer to the size of the number of cases, at least, we have 20,000 cases and 600 deaths. Again, 20,600, which is improving. And in Canada, you have 24,700. It's about the same. So it's close to the same. You have, rough. I mean, these are, we could split hairs about, digging into these numbers further, but it's grossly the same. So I'm hoping, though, that Canada will bear the fruit of medical practitioners learning and sharing about novel ways of going after this thing. I can't remember a time in my career when there's been so much interaction with physicians wide and far. I've been talking to intensivists, pulmonary specialists, general internists, infectious disease doctors, literally all over the country. And everybody's wanting to share and pitch in with their ideas, and rapid learning is going on. Now, whether or not we'll see really any change in the daily death rate, I'm hoping, as well as the hospitalization rate and the ICU utilization. Let's go over to New York and see if we can see anything that's going on there. Again, the COVID-19.healthdata.org is outdated data today. Let's be fair to them. They update their data about every 3 or 4 days, and the stuff we're looking at there is from a couple of days ago. We've reviewed that on a couple occasions. But if you go to the COVID tracking project, they have more updated data. You just don't get to see the graph. So let's look at New York, and we're looking at 108,000 cases, 8,000 deaths.
So Kate Shanahan just texted me.
Oh yeah, and
I just sent it to you.
And well, let's go. Let's bring it in. Can we bring her in?
I don't know. Look what she said.
Yeah. I'm completely involved. It just makes perfect sense to me. This is the kind of stuff that we are sharing amongst physicians that is very interesting. Can she call in?
Yeah, let me tell her. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. So Kate Shanahan is an expert in diet and lipids and what things affect the linings of our arteries, which is part of where the war is going on in this virus. It's almost like it's triggering a separate disease that we're sort of thinking of as this cytokine cascade. So it caused pneumonia and it caused a cytokine cascade, and there is an overlap with the lung problem as well. So, okay, New York, I can't see historical data on New York. Here we go. So history is new tests are slowing down a little bit. New positives are slowing down a little bit. Deaths, hospitalization rate, it was slowing down. Now it looks like it's picked up a little bit. It was slowing down quite a bit. Now I'd like to see more about that and why that picked up today. Deaths are about the same. So, all right, that's not as good as I'd like to see. I was hoping to see a little more encouraging data coming out of New York. That's, it's concerning. Let me look at New Jersey as well, if you give me a second here. What's crazy?
that it just still goes on and on.
Yeah, it's going on. It's intense. Let me go down to New Jersey. Actually, let me go to Connecticut because that was one of the areas we were worried about. Connecticut, historical data for Connecticut. Let's see how they're doing. They are steady. Positive tests have dropped down. Let's see. They don't have the hospitalization rate, unfortunately, there. And if we go to Massachusetts, which is the other state we were concerned, but they should have that data.
Okay.
What?
I'm trying to get
Kate. Okay,
Hold on,
good.
I gotta get this.
I'm going to historical data on Massachusetts, and you can see that the positive rate's about steady. The hospitalization rate may be going down a little bit, but the deaths do not appear to be significantly dropping, not to a degree that you'd feel good about.
Hey, Kate.
So let's get Kate Shanna in here. Kate,
Hi.
are you there? Hi, Kate. So you have something, an observation. Please let us know.
Yeah, so the connection, I believe, between obesity and other metabolic diseases like hypertension and diabetes
Yep.
and these more severe cases
Yep.
are the fact that the driver of obesity and metabolic disease is these seed oils that nobody's ever talking about except for just a few people like you and myself and Vinnie Tortorich that are high in polyunsaturated fatty acids. And what that does is these are extremely pro-inflammatory. They're easily oxidized. So when you have a person who is fighting off an infection, their body is in a very pro-inflammatory state. That's why steroids work, because they suppress inflammation. That's why tumor necrosis factor works, because it suppresses inflammation. But it's driven by these polyunsaturated fatty acids that are pro-inflammatory,
and so, but
they're in our diet now,
right? But it seems like the patients that are getting the complications are having like multiple pro-inflammatory hits. They have a lot of adiposity, a lot of fat, and that's pro-inflammatory, right? They have hypertension. I imagine that's pro-inflammatory. The lipids are probably off, and they're taking seed oils in. So it's multiple inflammatory processes. Would that be accurate?
Yes, but it all ties to the seed oils. So the reason that adipose these days is pro-inflammatory is because it contains 10 to 20 times more of these unstable, easily oxidized polyunsaturated fatty acids than body fat did 100 years ago.
Interesting.
And so we're seeing, and we see this. And so the real practical part of this is that not only do we want to, have folks at this point, if they're worried about the infection, completely avoid these seed oils in their diet if they possibly can. And so I'll just list out a few, which are soy, sunflower, safflower, corn, cottonseed, canola. But we also, I would just think it would be very helpful to the doctors who are treating patients in the hospital to get a laboratory test. It's a simple blood test called the Lipid Panel. And what you look at in the Lipid Panel that can predict how pro-inflammatory your body fat is.
Yeah. It's
called the triglyceride to HDL ratio, or just having a very low HDL. Either one of those two factors are very closely correlated to having a lot of linoleic acid or polyunsaturated fatty acid in their body fat, and diabetes and all these metabolic diseases, by the way, including hypertension.
Kate,
so the underlying thing is all the same.
Write this up for me in about 4 sentences. I keep it like just the basic beats. And if you don't mind, I like to share. There's a lot of sharing going on with the intensivist world who are trying to come to terms with what they're thinking of as now a separate disease process, which is this inflammation thing. And I think they'd find this very interesting. Do you have treatment recommendations for somebody who has a low HDL? Let's say they're starting to spike out with inflammation. They have low HDL. They're known to consume seed oil. They're moderately obese, let's say, or mildly even. What do we do?
Well, the nutritionally, we do know that things like glutathione and certain minerals that support the antioxidant enzymes of the body do dramatically help a person who needs to support their antioxidant enzymes, which is actually, we talk about antioxidants but we don't talk about the most important antioxidants in the body, which are the enzymes. And most of the enzymes that control things like free radical cascades in lipid membranes, which is what we're talking about. These polyunsaturated fatty acids are in lipid membranes, and in the setting of inflammation and infection, you have out of control oxidation, and you need to have a lot of antioxidant enzymes, especially around. And they use minerals like magnesium and manganese and zinc, and even iron, to help control the free radical cascade.
Well, isn't that interesting?
And
that
so,
zinc and magnesium and I believe vitamin C have all are being tried in the setting of this cytokine storm.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And, even things like I said, glutathione, vitamin E, and even iron. But, I think it would be great to be able to test and see if people are especially low, what they are especially low in.
You kind of broke up there on me.
If it were possible to do that.
Well, please write up some of those ideas.
Yeah,
please write, because I want to share that stuff. And vitamin D, vitamin C, glutathione, what doses, how much. And when people get sick, it's hard, they're not eating at all, right? And so it's hard to get attention on some of this stuff.
Right.
What's that, Susan?
About nutrition, absolutely. But the other important...
Go ahead.
Do you still have me?
Yep.
The other important aspect of this is that when they are not eating, they're releasing their stored body fat, which also can be relatively high in PUFA too.
Right.
So, it's definitely something you want to pay attention to now if you're not in the hospital and you want to stop eating these things, and maybe consider whether or not you might want to, supplement. But also just the fact that a person isn't eating, they might be releasing more of their stored body fat, which could then be exposing, depending on what their diet's been recently and, what their diet had been a long time ago, could then be exposing them to more of these polyunsaturated fatty acids than when they were eating.
What dose of zinc, glutathione, what do you recommend? Do we know?
Well, for most people, I just recommend 100% of the RDA, because I think that megadoses can potentially cause problems as well. And I just like to kind of limit it what we think is a safe dose.
What do we worry about with zinc?
Well, if you're taking it orally, it can cause stomach upset.
Yeah.
And anything that has an antioxidant effect can also have a pro-oxidant effect. That's just the nature of chemistry. And so if you have too much of a good thing, it can become a bad thing.
Got it. That makes sense. All right. So glutathione, zinc, vitamin D, vitamin C, anything else?
Vitamin E. Vitamin D helps you absorb calcium, which is also super important, but vitamin E as well.
And magnesium. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Oh, my goodness.
Yes, and manganese, actually, which is really high in a lot of spices.
Are you seeing any cases in the outpatient setting?
Yeah, I have. And I noticed that one of the unusual things about this pneumonia, well, actually early on, I saw it was a whole family. And the child had extremely sore throat, and she had white patches on the back of her throat, like you would with strep, but her tonsils weren't swollen. It was really red. And then she got better the very next day. And then a few days later, her wife got a sore throat and got better for a few days. And then she started getting a cough and a fever and the typical COVID symptoms. And the unusual thing about all this is, I'm sorry, did I say her wife? I meant her mother.
Yeah, I figured.
The child's mother.
I figured.
Got these symptoms. And when she started getting the high fever, she got pain in her upper chest. And so far, everybody that I've spoken to that had COVID and probably a pneumonia from the COVID had chest pain, and that's not normal in my experience with weird. Pneumonia. It's normally there's not a specific pain in the chest like this.
It again makes you wonder if that's an inflammatory process as well. If you can get any rheumatologist involved, please do. I'm trying to get our colleague rheumatologists, because this is their area. And the kinds of medicines that the intensivists are using are rheumatic medicines. They're the stuff people see advertised on TV for psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, that kind of stuff. And they have no experience with those medicines. And it sure would be good to get some guidance from rheumatology, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'd be super important. And fortunately, hopefully these medicines are, if they have any side effects, they're more with a long-term use. So hopefully, this is going to be a short-term thing for people.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, Kate, thank you so much for alerting me to your observations, and please put them in an email and send it to me, and I'll send it around and see what the intensivists want to do with it. Okay.
Yes, I just have one last message. Is that and thanks for having me on, by the way, Dr. Chu. But the message is that for people who want to avoid the ventilator, I think they should be paying as much attention to avoiding these feed oils as they do to masks and hand washing.
Fair enough. I think that's you've been prescient in the past, so let's take your advice into heart, and we should be doing it anyway.
Which seed oils are you talking about, so people know?
So say it again. She said it. We'll say it again.
Which ones?
There's three C's and 3 S's. So it's corn, canola, cottonseed, soy, sunflower, safflower. Those are the worst, most common.
And then they should be using
olive oil, coconut oil, butter, avocado oil, and naturally high-fat foods.
Butter.
Even bacon.
Butter.
And bacon.
But butter. I mean, that's the bottom line. They should be using right now. It makes it simple. Just use butter.
Butter and bacon.
And anybody who should not be using butter?
Really, I can't think of a soul who should not be using butter.
You can't think of a soul
people who don't like it.
Well, you can. How about high linoleic acid butter or anything
Somebody
like
who just
that?
had a heart attack,
or what like Irish what do they call that butter? The grass-fed beef.
Yeah. So there's
Go ahead.
Kerrygold brand grass-fed butter. Yes. That has that's grass-fed, so it has a lot of omega-3 fatty acids in there, but it's not enough to be a problem. Like omega-3 fatty acids are polyunsaturated, but this is the anti-inflammatory kind, and it's protected with all the saturated fat that the butter is mostly made out of.
Should we be taking or avoiding the fish oils?
Personally, I do not recommend fish oils because there's so many other alternatives, and there are studies that show that the fatty acids in fish oils, because they're so very unstable, they don't last 30 days. In other words, they start to degrade into toxins.
In the actual the bottle in the pills. Yeah,
exactly. Before you swallow them, and I think that's one reason why a lot of people notice they get heartburn from fish oil because it's degraded.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I don't like it.
You don't like it?
I don't like fish oil.
But if you could taste it, you could taste whether it was fresh or rancid. I think then if it were fresh, it should be fine. Fresh tasting.
Fair enough.
But that's still going to be very fishy.
Somebody's asking, what about NAC for glutathione boosts?
Yeah, that's another N-acetylcysteine. And it's actually been used for loosening mucus, if I remember right. I'm going back to my residency days.
Yeah.
It had some kind of an anti-inflammatory effect on the lungs.
Mm-hmm. We used to use it, remember, for Tylenol overdoses too. Right? Isn't that what we used to use for, as I recall?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
bring you back memories.
Yeah. But how much? Again, the dosing on all these things. Any ideas?
I would say whatever the dosing is that they use for people with cystic fibrosis. I believe that's the setting that it was used for. It was like aerosolized down the ventilator. And then in terms of like daily use, they actually it's a supplement, right? So they do supplements. So I would do whatever the supplements are over the counter, because that's been determined to be reasonably safe enough so that people buying these supplements don't have a problem.
Somebody said, wait, you can overdose on Tylenol. Yes, it is one of the most deadly overdoses you can get involved with. You can take just 8 to 12 Tylenol and your liver will shut down 3 days later if you don't do something about it. And people that take fistfuls of Tylenol get their liver necrosis. It's a disaster. It's one of the worst, most horrible things you could possibly die of. It's gruesome. Yeah. I'm sure these days they're doing
especially common after
after.
alcohol too, right?
Yeah,
After
the
alcohol, like
alcoholics
drinking
can.
too much,
Yeah,
because the alcohol and
alcoholics can get into trouble with Tylenol. That's why I always say, look, I don't take. I'm not a fan of non-steroidals, but take Tylenol unless you're an alcoholic, and then you got to really be careful.
So take it in the morning when you have the hangover.
It's not that simple. Your liver stays inflamed for a while after you take moderate amounts of alcohol, and so. And then whether or not it goes on to fibrosis or cirrhosis, that's all very genetically determined to one degree or another. But all right, Kate, now I'll let you go. Oh, it's a lot of information, and please send it to me in a little bit of an email, and I will circulate it, okay?
will do. Thanks very much for having me on.
Thank you.
Dr. Drew.
Anytime.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Stay in touch, please.
Thanks. Same to you guys.
Dr. Oz said that a test in France found that those on standard blockers, high blood pressure drug, helps the COVID-19 get into the lungs. Okay. So, Betty Smith, that is an old story about ARBs and ACE inhibitors, that they upregulate some of the receptors on the surface of the nose and the lungs that allow the virus to get in, which is true, but they also block the ability of the virus to come into the cells. So it seems to be upregulating the protein, but downregulating the inspissation of the virus. And so the guidance from all the different additional professional societies is stay on your blood pressure medicine. Do not change your blood pressure medicine. So, okay, so a lot of information, everybody. There's a lot of stuff going on here.
Let's talk about this week's charities that we got involved with.
Yes, I do want to do that. Let me first say, Tiffany, I saw your threads up there. I understand you're crying a lot, you're depressed, and you're worried about alcohol excess. The alcohol is not going to help. It's going to destabilize your mood more. So please see if you can stop. Before you do spiral out of control. All right. So our partners this week have been Ross Gettler, the CEO of the Open Center. The Open Center provides on-demand wellness resources. They also had a toolkit for managing stress. It was
for first responders,
for first responders primarily, but they have other stuff available at opencenter.org. Really a good
therapists and
good resource. Therapists, groups.
Healers.
You can help them at drdrew.com. Their website, the opencenter.org, and also opencenter.org/donate-NY for NY. And it's the number 4. There's New Yorkers for New York, FOR, New Yorkers for New York.org, as well as hashtag NY4, number 4, NY. And then our friends at Urban Resource Center of New York, they're they're like Hillsides. Hillsides is my pick out here. URINYC is the similar thing out in New York. Very deep, rich resources there. You can be part of the GoFundMe link with them at drdrew.com/URINYC. And then our friends at Patina Cares here locally in Southern California, if you send them an email at patinacares@patinagroup.com, you can help there. Their meals go a long way. They're providing meals to so-called no-contact box meals to community members and frontline personnel. The good food at reasonable price. Your money goes a long way.
And the Union Rescue Mission.
And then our buddies at Union Rescue Mission, who've been doing the God's work there at downtown Los Angeles forever, Andy Bales. They are the team that lost. I don't know if we were talking about this when Reverend Bales was up here, but they had one team member who was a recovering addict off the streets who died of COVID. Is the only sort of downtown case, interestingly. So somehow we have dodged a bullet with the homeless in Los Angeles and San Francisco. And things are so far so good. And Reverend Bales has got housed a whole bunch of people, and he's moving them in because they're elderly. He's moving them to spaces where they can spread them out a little bit.
Some great organizations out there trying to help. It actually feels good to help. If you can get affiliated with anybody in your local area and help people that are truly suffering, it actually gives you something happy to do.
Matt is asking, can a healthy person get plasma antibodies, and prevent the disease? Yeah, probably true, but we're too busy using them on people to fight the disease. And it's a pretty involved, expensive process. If you put your mask on to run an errand, you need to throw it away or wash it. I mean, I don't know about each trip, but each day, it's a good idea to do that, right? And obviously, if you're going into an environment, a high-risk environment, yes, then it's every trip.
I feel so bad for the kids that can't have their Easter egg hunts, and it's such a fun day for them.
We watched videos of our own kids when they were very little on Easter today. That was our Easter ritual. And unfortunately, Susan dialed it all the way back to when they were infants, and I developed PTSD looking at her after delivery, so pale that I couldn't, she blended into the sheets. I've never seen lips that
I haven't
white
looked at
before.
it since the first time I looked at it. I put it up into the cloud, and I don't know, just came across it.
Mark, you say you're having a Campylobacter. I feel very strongly Campylobacter should be treated with antibiotics. I've seen lots of it. It does not tend to, I mean, it can be self-limited, but if it's going on for too long and the diarrhea is intense, it's a very simple antibiotic treatment. So if you have proven Campylobacter, then that should be treated.
Somebody just asked about Poland. I actually looked that up this morning because our housekeeper's Polish, and she said we only had 300 deaths. So I looked it up, and it was something like 3,000. But they have a lot of beds.
I'm looking, people are asking questions about the spread rate. I'm looking at the CDC website right now.
What is that website again, Drew? So the person who wants to know about Poland can look it up.
It is the covid19.healthdata.org. Spread rates, slow the spread guidelines they have, of course. Trying to get to a 1-to-1 or 1.05 to 1 spread rate, of course, would be nice. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see anything on the CDC website that I guess you're asking why the goal of 1.05 and how we get to that goal. I will try to figure that out.
Tell everybody about the phone situation we were talking about this morning.
That Google and Apple, in California particularly, are getting together to form an alliance that will let us track people that are antibody positive or virus positive, so we can all navigate in such a way without getting exposed.
I can't see the virus positive working though. I mean,
Why is
nobody
that?
will report that they had it.
I think that will happen that will come from the CDC directly. So people, once you test positive, that's information that the CDC gets.
But are you just going to be positive for 2 weeks on the app and then they may let it go away?
That's a good question.
I mean,
they'll certainly give you 2 weeks. I imagine that person will have to be followed. This is something they've got to figure out in the app until they're symptom free for at least 3 to 5 days, depending on what's going on with them.
Yeah.
So
I
they
can
could
see,
go on
like,
for
if
weeks.
you already tested positive, but you're better, then you could go wherever you wanted to.
Yep. Yeah, someone's asking how's that going to work with HIPAA. I don't know. And maybe the actual individuals won't be identified so much as the area will be identified where somebody is that has the virus.
And Jordan was like, oh my God, it's going to be like an Amber Alert going off every 5 minutes on your phone if you're in New York.
Brett's asking about Dr. David Price's video about hands being the main route of transmission. We're constantly learning about the surface transmission and the aerosolization, but the reality is that the aerosol transmission is elevators, trains, and hallways. It's not outside, but we are learning about how it sits outside. Surface transmission appears to be relatively unusual, but that's something we can avoid by hand washing and doing all the careful techniques. The primary means of transmission is still droplet at close contact, prolonged close contact, and then hands. It's
COVID19.healthdata.org, right?
COVID19.healthdata.org. And
I'm giving this to the guy.
Colin Jacobs, I have tried to get him
Poland.
repeatedly and have been unsuccessful in doing so.
I think that's where I saw it this morning.
What's that?
The Poland statistics.
Yeah. Okay, I can go on it really quickly if you want. Is somebody asking about Poland?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see what
I looked at Prague. It was like 350, and Poland was like, because I have family in Prague, and then
Poland is pretty flat.
It said 3,000 though.
Yeah, though the deaths per day, it's not a lot for a country.
Yeah,
look up for me what the country size is, the population size of Poland. They're going to peak though in mid-May in terms of deaths. They're going to peak in late April. I beg your pardon. Deaths per day, but their bed utilization is very, very low. That's very
I
interesting.
know Germany has a lot of beds.
Oh, they don't. Wait a minute.
37 million people in Poland.
So out of 37 million people, so it's about the size of California, roughly speaking.
That's a lot of deaths.
They're going to have about 2,300 compared to, let's look at California. Let's say it's roughly the same size. We're going to end up with 1,600. So California is doing better than Poland, but not by large margins. I mean, it's easy to look at these numbers. These are not the kinds of numbers that were predicted, which is nice. Hopefully, we'll have some new information tomorrow when Dr. Murray updates the University of Washington COVID site, which I like looking at. I think it's been very useful. And, I will maybe circulate around some of that data that Kate Shanahan was talking about. Kate Shanahan is a world-class biochemist and a world-class physician. And so she brings insights, biological insights, into things like this that I think we should pay attention to. So opinion on Ireland. Well, what's going on with Ireland? We're getting sort of questions from around the world now.
A little more isolated and...
Well, let's see. Ireland deaths per day. Susan, check for me the population size. You're already on the downside in Ireland, quite on the downside. Only about 750 beds needed, and the total deaths around 500. So,
or 5 million people in
okay,
Ireland.
So,
but it's also kind of isolated.
Yeah, so it's about the same as everybody, but you're getting through it, and you've met your resource needs, which is, again, the resource needs has been the thing that has been most acute and most concerning.
And Poland's kind of a major hub, too.
Yeah. Now that we have dealt with the resource needs, say, in New York, let me go to New York, the issue now is driving the death rate down, the ICU rates down, and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
New York is today on the downslope of everything. Let's see, the deaths per day, which usually lags. We'll see. I don't have access to that data, but we'll see what the graphs show when they come out tomorrow, hopefully.
You see Michelle's question?
Let me go back to the restream, and I will tell you.
She's on Facebook.
Michelle, you want to maybe ask me what Michelle asked me?
Says, I wish someone would talk about the odds of catching this, the odds of dying from it, and how much washing of groceries, hand surfaces, etc. I mean, everyone is in a panic mode, becoming OCD. We need to calm people down.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree. 99% of people survive this. 80% of the people have mild to moderate illness. It's nasty. But
some people die from it.
It's more ferocious in certain settings than I ever imagined, and it's almost impossible to predict when it's going to do that.
I wonder what percentage is over 80.
What do you mean?
That have passed.
No, it's not only one. I think we're just we're at 1% fatality, right? So 99% of people survive.
But like they're all older.
They're not. They're mostly older. They're mostly pre-existing, and again, as you just heard. Obesity, fatty acid metabolism, inflammatory risks, these all seem to be figuring into this. Then they're trying to figure out how now to manage it when it gets triggered, why it gets triggered, who it gets triggered, inflammatory markers that tell us it's getting triggered, and then what to do depending on which inflammatory markers. So, and yes, history, it's dangerous for low-income minorities, absolutely. And that, as Kate just pointed out, she thinks a lot of that is the seed oils that are so prominent in our diets today. Okay. What do I think about suspected or unconfirmed cases being added to the death rate? I look, if somebody has coronary disease and this getting infected with COVID precipitates a crisis and a heart attack, I think it's fine to put it as a COVID death. The actual cause is coronary disease, but I think it's relevant to count it as a COVID death as well, because that's the people who are getting into trouble with this. If we took everybody out that didn't have pre-existing medical conditions, you'd have a pretty small number of people. A relatively small number of people dying of this thing. So, yes.
I heard somebody talking about death certificates and how they there's a lot of things that go on there, but what gets reported is like
the COVID.
The main thing is.
Yeah, it's the COVID. And look, the death certificates in this country it's a very weird thing. I mean, they have all kinds of weird regulations around it. Each state is a little bit different. So,
but if you've been battling cancer and you got to get credit for battling cancer and then dying of cancer and getting COVID.
It would show up on the death certificate, but the point is it gets counted as a COVID death, which I think is appropriate. All right. So back to Michelle, who's asking about everybody freaking out. Yeah. None of us want to get this. And we're all trying to contain it on behalf of other people, right? So we don't walk around asymptomatically or we don't infect others. So we are very cautious on behalf of one another, and also we don't want it ourselves. And if you're in a risk category, then it's appropriate for you to be very, very careful. But it's hopefully the treatments are going to put a real dent in the hospitalization. That 80% don't get hospitalized, leaving that 20% that maybe does. If we can knock that down to 5 or 10%, if we can knock the mortality rate down to a percentage of 1%, then we are really in good shape. And so it's therapeutics that are going to be hopefully the thing that turns the tide that way.
Somebody wants to know about Canada.
I've mentioned it.
They gave me a link here.
I know. I've now reviewed
World
it. This will be the third time I've reviewed it. 24,000 with 713,000 deaths. There you go.
It says 713 deaths on this.
It's 24,000 with 713 deaths. So it's about equivalent to California is what I was saying, right? Is that
yeah.
So let me go back and try to make an association. New York is going to peak out around 13,000 deaths. Let's go back to the Canada. So New York's going to have twice that. Again, you have to start comparing numbers of populations and urban density and all this kind of stuff.
Somebody wants to know if seed oil is like peanut butter.
She didn't say that.
No.
Did she say peanut oil?
No. She said like canola and
corn. Corn is the big one. California.
Just go with the avocado, olive, and anything that's
California's
buttery.
going to have about 1,600 or so deaths, and Canada's going to have around, it doesn't give a prediction. They're at 713 per day, which...
problem is all the food's got it in it.
California, no, are they at 713 total? Or it's so hard to flip back and forth in these things. Total deaths, 713, while California is today at under that. So it's about the same. It's roughly speaking, it's about the same as California. Okay. I would like to wrap things up. Remind everyone again about Hillsides. Go to their website, hillsides.org. You can donate there. And we appreciate you joining us. And we appreciate Kate Shanahan for stopping by and reminding us that the seed oils are pro-inflammatory, and whether or not you want to make an issue in relation to COVID or not. And it's something worth thinking about going forward with your health as well. She's brought that into this program before.
Also, a shout out to Hydrolite.
Our friends at Hydrolite. We again get the Hydrolite. If you get sick, this is how you stay hydrated. Hydration is an important part of getting well. This
they have
is
the new electrolyte powder.
It's like an IV. It's like getting an IV if you can tolerate taking in fluids. I strongly recommend it. Matt, I was saying that if we can get the death rate down below a percentage of 1%. Zinc and quinine. The zinc alone may have some benefit, but as you heard with Kate Shanahan, I was saying that if you take too much of it, it can do the opposite of what you're looking for. Have you seen any doctors yet? Sick, I think you mean? I'm not yet. I've seen plenty of COVID cases, though. All right. Let's kind of wrap this up. I think, what's that, Susan?
Happy Easter, everyone.
Yes, and as I had said yesterday, there's some data that came out on one of the antiviral medications that showed it
Don't eat too much chocolate.
Effective 2/3 of the time. The remdesivir, 2/3 of severe COVID-19 improved on remdesivir, which is pretty good data. So hopefully we'll get more data like that next week. I'm looking forward to next week being really data, not just data on therapeutics, but data where the therapeutic is changing the course. That's what we can hope and pray for on this Easter. So happy Easter, everybody. And are we in here tomorrow, Susan?
We have an Ask Dr. Drew tomorrow with none other than Bert Kreischer.
Oh, yeah, we asked Bert Kreischer to come in
at your request,
lighten things up a little bit.
And the doctor that I told you about. And I can't remember her name.
As
but
an epidemiologist.
Yeah,
So
I can't even say that word, so I'm going to let you say it.
We're going to do some epidemiology, and we're going to do some lighten it up with Bert.
Follow it up with Bert Kreischer.
Who's, by the way,
There's an oxymoron
he's
for
sober
you.
as can be, and his anxiety is better.
Yes.
Yeah, he's very good right now.
Good for him.
I talked to him yesterday, and he seemed
All right,
quite,
well, you can text him afterwards.
Text him after this?
Yeah.
No, he knows he's coming.
He knows? Okay.
And he was you were sitting right there when I talked to him.
I know. I just get nervous, I bug him, I'm that crazy wife. I've seen it. I see what people say about me.
On the restream here?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
They say it everywhere.
No, they don't.
Oh, yeah,
Who says that?
they do. I'm
Yeah.
crazy. It's okay.
Sue, Massachusetts, New England is generally something I'm concerned about. Massachusetts and Connecticut, both. I'm very worried about what's going to go on next week
He
with
said
them.
Bert's not sober.
He's for the moment. I wouldn't say sober. He's
Not
abstinent.
sober.
Abstinent. He's abstinent right
Yeah.
now. Abstinent, and he's having. We'll
He's a
talk
better
about.
man than I am.
We'll talk about him and treats. We'll talk about Bert and treats and FOMO, which is what he's wants to talk about.
Now everybody's saying they love me.
Yeah. See.
No, I know, but everybody says I'm crazy too, but that's kind of true.
How would they know you're crazy just because you talk?
Because I'm married to you. No. No.
All right. Well, again, that we went over our videos of early child rearing with triplets, and that's amazing that we didn't go crazy with that.
Support your local restaurants and have a nice Easter dinner together.
Yeah, do that. We're going to send out and get something in here and support local restaurants, things like that. And we will see you tomorrow for a call-in show.
God bless you. Happy
See you then.
Easter.
Happy Easter, everybody.